it.
Hey guys, so the thing I want to bring to the table at the moment is, well, like growth versus manpower. So as you are growing, business venture, whatever, you get on more, take on more work. Basically, I'm trying to find out when is the right time to grow. So you can have like a bottleneck of manpower as you start to grow and take on more work. And basically the decision is for me, do you do that growth preemptively? So like get more people on board to take on that work, which could give you the scope to take on more work, or do you do like reactive growth? So wait till you've got the work, but that can, well, to take it to the bottom, some of the issues you can face with that is you can end up with people that are stressed out, got too much on their plate. It can result in not being able to take on new work because you just physically don't have the resources to deal with it. On the flip side, if you go preemptive, you can have people that are sitting around twiddling their thumbs because you don't quite have the work in, and then you're kind of saying, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, until it eventually that work does arrive. So for me, I'm just trying to find that balance between, when do you take those steps for growth? And well, I mean, I don't know what some of the other issues are. If you guys want to shed some light on that and help me take it to the bottom.
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah.
You could be out. I knew Deola was going to say that, to be honest. But you don't have the cash to invest in that personnel. Then I think I've seen that and experienced that before, where lots of new staff are on board, the processes and everything aren't in place, nobody really knows what they're doing. Really, then it's just costing a lot more to actually deliver the main project, and you're in trouble financially after that, as well as you've got people sitting around doing nothing, was costing you as well.
Yeah, particularly when it's something new that you're not 100% sure is going to give you the return you want. But the only way you're going to find out is to try and do that work. But now you've got, like you said, people twiddling their thumbs or expecting to be paid as if they're doing the full work. But then equally, as you said, if you don't do that, the people that are already there are stressed out, they're frustrated, their productivity goes down, their capacity to do the new thing is just removed. It's just kind of bad all round.
I think could stunt your growth, really.
Yes.
Yeah, massively.
People are too busy.
Yeah.
I'm finding it's an underrated dilemma, and you can really get like is it a chicken or an egg type thing? Like,
yeah.
And you almost kind of have to try and time them the same, but it's not easy to get the work and then the manpower at the same time.
Yeah.
How do you go about doing that? I mean, it's something that I'm just really trying to get my head around a bit.
I guess even just to really like hone it in as well, it's just a consequence of growth. Like when you're an adult, you can buy those pair of shoes with confidence, you can have them until they're worn out. With a child or while you're growing, do you go for shoes that are tight or wait till they're tight and potentially causing damage to your feet or whatever, or comfort? Or do you buy it big and that doesn't fit properly and you're falling out of your shoes and it's dangerous or it looks silly? It's like both of those are bad. And the period of time where the size fits is so minute or seems so small, the window, it feels like the value you're paying for the shoes, for example, is only being maximized in that moment. And so you're overpaying. Like you're dedicating to overpaying when the window of maximum comfort is going to be smaller than the value of what I'm paying for. And when you think about it in business terms, that's bad. The value of the resource is going to be smaller potentially than the amount of money I have to invest or the amount of stress I give to the people before I invest. And that's a dilemma.
Yeah.
I think the technical term for that is a loss, like literally physically, which is obviously not the aim in business, right? So that's the thing that we're trying to avoid here.
It's a short blanket, isn't it? You either have your feet cold or your head cold or your neck cold. You pull one up, then you're cold in the other place. And it's like, you can't do much more with that blanket.
It is a forever dilemma. I think people have struggled with this for the way previous. It's just something that's, you're never going to strike that right balance, I don't think. But you can plan for it, I think.
Okay. In the spirit of trying to do that, how do we take this back up to the top? What are some of the solutions that I could possibly look at trying to employ to get my head around this?
I think you've got to commit. So go on.
No, go on.
I think you have to commit to is growing your plan. And if growing is, if it's natural growth, then some of these decisions will force your hand and you probably end up responding. But if you're planning for growth, then I think you have to make room for growth. You have to buy the oversized clothes to grow into. You have to have your target size. And so that's when it becomes part of your investment cost. I'm going to put into what I'm doing. And then depending on that, the other option I have for passing over to Jankee is how much do you sell things other than money to lower the cost of what you're doing. So a lot of startups will find people who are passionate about the project, will promise people stock, will promise part of it so that they can get the labor without putting down the money. And then when the actual rewards come in, you share the rewards. And so there's different ways of doing that. But if you're committing to growth, you have to create capacity for it.
Yeah,
That's a good point, actually, to start there. Is actually, are you supposed to be growing or have you planned to grow? I'm actually glad that you went first. But after that, it is the financial planning that comes into play, and the resource management. Is everybody being actually utilized as they should be, or do you already have leaks and gaps where actually efficiency, productivity, so you could be about to outlay some cash on something, but actually there's capacity for it already. So that planning is going to be important in assessing what's already there and maximizing. Especially if you're growing, roles can change very quickly.
Yeah.
And very quickly you can find that isn't relevant anymore for us. That was the first few weeks in what we were doing, but we're past that and people are still doing it because we like to find patterns and rhythm in what we're doing. So assess that first, and then I suppose, plan after that and say, if I am going to do it, this is the cash I'm going to spend and risk, and this is the cash I'm going to, or the resources I'm going to outlay, and inch by inch, inch it forward.
Like a few things, I guess, that you guys have both said, in terms of, it seems like you guys are saying you have to, it's better theoretically in a way to kind of try and go preemptive. And you talked about risk a moment ago. But in a way, if you're looking at, you know, how you can get into a situation where, you know, people aren't being maximized or whatever else, in a way, if you do it reactive, you make that people are definitely being utilized to their full, because you've got
potentially.
do you know what I mean? You've got to a point where, okay, look, we now have to grow because we don't have the manpower to take on some of this other stuff. So I'm just like, there's obviously pros and cons to both.
Yes, but I think there's another thing that actually makes it really, as a manager, leader in that company, in that situation, you worth your salt, is that, have you looked at the efficiency of what you have currently? Because if you're at your maximum efficiency and you look at your resources and make sure they're being utilized, not just in their time, but for efficiency, then what you're actually saying is we're already profit making. And part of your profits you'd retain for investment anyway. And so you're just doing that as soon as possible before it shows up in the lines in your accounts afterwards. So the more efficient and productive what you have is now, what you're doing is you're taking and you're saying, do we have room for our resources to be utilized for this new thing? If they don't, well, because they're so well utilized, we've got a profit margin that we're now reinvesting into getting the next person in. And then as quickly as possible, we bring them up to speed and get them as efficient as the rest of it. And then you're just continuously investing in yourself, in your company, and still being profitable. And in a sense, that's a kind of a utopia, because it's not always going to be that way. But I feel like that's what you're striving for, to create room for growth by making sure that what you're doing now isn't causing unnecessary wastage.
And it can be hard to not see that as well, because you're right, actually. If you are incredibly efficient and you are doing what you should be doing, you should be making a profit. Or the business plan was wrong from the start.
Yeah, which means that if you're pivoting now away from what you're currently doing, or you might need that bit that's not profitable to then grow into the next part, but that has to be part of your planning and understanding that this is part of the investment, that labor cost is part of the investment that's going to allow the next thing to be profitable if money's part of the issue. But if it is doing well, then it should be creating some room for that next bit of investment, even if you have to do it step by step and slow down the growth from a 5-year plan to a 10-year plan, because you have to grow it more organically, and you get one extra space, you fill that up, then the next space, you fill that up, and you keep maximizing your resources.
Yeah. I think one of the main concerns for me, which is something that both of you guys have touched on, and what you said would help avoid it, but is just avoiding getting to the point where you've maximized the potential, the efficiency of current staff, and you're now at a point where there is extra work and potential. I mean, you're already profit making, obviously, in that circumstance, but there's extra potential work that you could be doing that you now no longer have the capacity to do, because in a sense you're at capacity unless you grow, and that growth is reactive, and while you are reacting, that is lost potential. But anyway, to try and summarize, I need one radical and one rational from you guys. I don't know who's got what.
I feel like just knowing Deola, he's got the radical one. I think.
Do you have one now to give, or either of them?
I've got a rational one.
Go for it.
Which we've already said it. It's that workflow planning and resource planning, and knowing what the cost benefit analysis is going to, or doing the cost benefit analysis to know that actually it's going to return this. This outlay is going to return this. This growth is going to return this, and then checking that it does, and if it doesn't, quickly cutting it out.
Well, I think in a similar vein, then the radical view is to be just aggressive in what you're doing. And that means that you aggressively go for the growth. And when it doesn't work, you just as aggressively get rid of it. And so if a department's not functioning, you're continuously looking for your team and saying, well, this isn't making me money, shut it down. Obviously, you have to balance that and make an analysis to say that this is not going to impact the other. But I think it's how you're going to move forward, almost like what we're seeing with the Super League at the moment is, this isn't working for us. We're cutting off the whole thing, stripping it up, and we're going for our growth model, because this is what's going to bring us into the future. You shatter the whole thing, you bring chaos, you upset everybody, but you say, actually, this is what we're growing towards, and forget everything that wasn't helping us. And you deal with what comes with that.
It sounds like a lot of hiring and firing.
It does.
Essentially.
But you follow the money, effectively.
Follow the money, indeed. All right, thanks for that, guys. Really appreciate it. Definitely a lot to think about and take forward there. So I'll let y'all know how it goes. All right, thanks, guys.